All right, so welcome to another episode of Optics in Action. I'm here at the Female Integrator Mastermind this week, and we've got Angie Dianetti from Radcom, is one of the leaders who's here that we actually have met before.
Yes, we have.
And we bumped into each other and we started reconnecting and remembering some of our previous conversations. And so we're recording some podcasts live here at the show. And I'm just so excited that we bumped into each other and reconnected and started talking about people and process and all these things. So if you could, Angie, tell the audience a little bit about who you are and what you do. Let's start with that.
All right. Well, Angie Dianetti, my company is Radcom, and we are performance improvement consultants that grew out of the tech writing and instructional design industry. So, yeah, I had looked at what are the reasons people get their people trained and write standard operating procedures, and it's companies are looking to get the best out of their employees, and training and documentation can be a part of that solution.
Yeah,
but it's not all of it.
It's not all of it,
and
it
yeah. Doesn't solve the problem sometimes, especially if you don't identify what the real root issue is.
Sure. And so as you started working with clients and as Radcom has evolved, what is it that you see? What pain do you solve for people today when you start thinking about the root cause and the root of these issues? What are some of the things you find are the most important things to focus on?
So often the clients will come to us wanting to fix their people.
Okay.
Because it's easy. It's an easier solution. It's a kind of a go-to. I have a performance problem. Yeah, they're not doing what they're supposed to do.
Okay.
And so the go-to answer is, well, let's get them training on it. Mm-hmm. So my first question to people is, do they do it right sometimes? And if they do it right sometimes, it's not a knowledge problem.
Right.
They know how to do it right. So then the follow-up question to that is, then why aren't they doing it? If they know how to do it
consistently right.
Right. So let's go in and let's look at what the real problem is.
Yeah.
And sometimes the problem is they don't have the right tools. Sometimes the problem is they don't, sometimes it is they don't know, or they haven't had enough experience and practice and competencies and all those things that we usually go to, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes is your incentives are actually disincentivizing them to do the right thing.
Got it.
Sometimes it's the environment.
Yeah.
That if you change the flow of your process or the actual physical environment that they're in, you can solve the problem, and sometimes very inexpensively.
Right.
And we found that clients don't often actually see those things because they're so close to it.
Yeah, that's interesting. So if I could just for a moment, so
Sure.
We're here in Omaha, Nebraska, and the book that I wrote, actually from orangutan to rocket scientist. Okay, the orangutan is based on a story of an orangutan that lived here at the Henry Dooley Zoo.
Oh, cool.
And as you were talking, I started thinking about the reason that he's in my book. There are I used to have this PowerPoint slide. There's 3 things required to change: tools, skills, and mindset. And Fu Manchu needed all 3 of those things when he escaped the cage. And I think as you were talking about, sometimes people don't have the right tools. Sometimes they don't have the right skills or competencies. And sometimes they may not have the right mindset. And the mindset may be internal to the person, right? They may not be motivated internally, but it may also be those incentives and things that you just talked about. So I think about those 3 things, and I have to tell this story about Fu Manchu the orangutan. And I'm going to take my daughter there this afternoon to see. He needed a piece of wire that he broke off from the light to use as a lockpick to get out of the cage.
Very cool.
So he would hide it by his gum line. The zookeepers didn't realize it. He would hide it by his gum line.
Wow.
And when they tranquilized him, they're like, how did he get out of the cage? And they found this little piece of wire. So he needed a tool. The second thing he needed was his skills, right? An orangutan's incredibly clever, incredibly smart. He had a tool. He had to have the skill to pick the lock. And I've told this story over and over throughout the years that he also needed the mindset. If an employee is happy eating bananas and having the stuff cleaned up behind him, right? You could give them the tools. You could teach them to be a locksmith.
But they don't.
You could give them keys and be a teacher.
Right,
But
but they're not motivated.
If they're not motivated to do it, and sometimes it's intrinsically, sometimes it's extrinsically. But I think as you're talking about this, we have very similar thoughts around that. People can do amazing things, but they've got to be incentivized. They got to be motivated. They've got to have the right skills, tools, mindset to do those things. And then, but sometimes, as you said, people document these processes and SOPs that people don't even follow. And you say they follow it sometimes, but not always. And it's like, why, right? So you're peeling back the layers and say, all right, why aren't they following all the time?
We had a client ask us to update their SOPs because their people weren't following them, and I'm like, tell me more about this. How is updating it going to solve your problem?
So the reason we're going to update the SOPs is because people aren't following the ones we already created. All right. So as you started peeling back the layers on that, what was sort of the reason that you found, or what were some reasons that people weren't following those SOPs?
So we did a performance analysis. I talked them out of spending money with me for SOPs, and let's do a performance analysis. And we went in and talked to the actual workers, talked to their supervisors, observed the workflow. This is a manufacturing facility, and realized that they had a tool problem.
Okay.
They had an environment problem in that it was extremely hot in there, so people were getting dehydrated. So they had tools, environment,
which was impacting their mindset, right? Exactly.
Process was broken partially because of the environment. So the environment was broken. If you have like a Six Sigma lean kind of thing, but if something gets broken in that process, now you can't physically follow it anymore. So we found a lot of solutions for them that were a lot less expensive than documentation and training. And it's like, go fix these first, then we'll document it.
Then you can,
we can train on it, but let's fix the process.
Let's fix the problems first,
right? And you can. I think some people like if you have a good process and a bad fit employee, it's not going to work. If you have a great employee and a bad process, it's not going to work. We got to marry those things together to really have high productivity.
Yeah. It's one of the things. There's a quote from Deming. One of the old Deming quotes was, "A bad process or a bad system will beat a good person every time."
Mm-hmm.
And I think that story you just told about sometimes we can use the word sort of system or process loosely. Like if people are in an environment that's too hot and it's too, and they're dehydrated, they don't have access to, if they don't have access to those basic things that they need, then that bad system, you could hire in the most amazing employee. They could have the best resume. They could have the best, It'd be like, this person's a culture fit. Like, we did all these things. They're a perfect fit. And yet they quit after a week. Right. And, asking those questions of, right, why did they quit? Right. And why, was our system so bad that it burned people out?
Exactly.
And sometimes as leaders of businesses, I think we got to take a step back and look at it and say, what are we doing to create a system, a culture, a place for employees to thrive, rather than, I've heard some excuses, right? The managers, oh, well, this new generation doesn't do this, or they quit after a couple of days. All right. So what are we doing to solve that problem?
Exactly.
Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
So why do you do the things you do? What makes you excited about RadCom and the way you approach these problems, the way you help people solve it? Why do you do what you do, Angie?
We have a very strong belief that everybody should love their work. And you can't love your work if you don't know what is expected of you. And you're in an environment that doesn't allow you to do your best work. But when I say I want everyone to love their work, that includes the boss, the owner of the business, because what as a business owner, what makes me love my work? I want to know that we're producing great results for my clients.
Yeah.
Right? And we're not going to produce those great results if we're not getting supporting the employees, showing them what our expectations are. So we focus very much on outputs.
Mhm.
Everybody knows what is the output you're required to produce, the quality of that output, and it gets rid of what I call mutual mystification of employment. Where,
Hold on, wait, let's back up. So mutual mystification of employment. Tell me more about what that means.
so let's say you're my boss and you have told me the expectations of my position.
Okay.
And I have heard what I interpret as those expectations. But often there's like this fuzzy layer between. So what you have said to me and what I have heard are not the same things.
Yeah.
Even though we both look at each other and say, I get it, I can do that.
Yeah.
And that is the most common situation. You get that corporate nod, you know, you get
those disconnects.
it's those disconnects. So by starting out, we developed something called we're currently calling it a performance profile.
Okay.
That is looks a little bit originally, the rollover view looks like a job description.
Okay.
But the most important part of it and what makes it different is you spell out the outputs of the job. Okay. Because as an employer, I am paying you to produce a result. I'm not paying you for your time. I'm not paying you for your expertise. I'm not even paying you to churn the activities that go into normal KPIs.
Yeah.
I am paying you to produce a result. It's a business transaction.
Yeah.
Not a, yeah. And so, but that's not fair if I don't tell you what that result is.
Right.
So we focus on the results, focus on what the quality of the results, what does good look like, how do you produce that results? That's kind of where the SOPs come in. What skills and knowledge do you need to produce that result? That's where training comes in.
Yeah.
What relationships do you have to produce that result?
Yeah.
So, we're trying, it's people that work in those positions.
Yeah.
Humanize it.
That's right. Yeah, I think as technology has been evolving, what role do you see technology? Like we've got AI, all of this buzz about artificial intelligence and machine learning and social media. I mean, just all of these technology things that are happening. How do we keep that human element in people's work? Like, what are you doing, or what are your thoughts on how do we keep things human?
Yeah,
because at the end of the day, to me, it only matters if we can impact humans in a positive way.
Right.
I don't want to feed the AI beast, right? Like,
right. As you said, what motivates me is I want people to love their work. Yeah. But all those technology, it's all tools.
Yeah.
The tools change. Humanity really does the tools we use that change.
Yeah.
Transportation. We used to use our feet and carts and horses and buggies and then cars and all those things. But the reality is that those are tools to get people from point A to point B. Yeah. And do the tools evolve and get better, faster? But it's still human beings that use them.
Right.
I know there's a lot of people in our professions close enough that are very worried about AI.
Yeah.
But I also remember at a Society for Technical Communications conference probably 20 years ago, people were afraid of content management because it's going to take our jobs away. It's going to change how we write. It impacted the field. There is no doubt AI will impact the field. Yeah. It'll impact a lot of people's fields, but it's still serving humans, and it's a tool used by humans. So might it eliminate your job as you see it today? Maybe. Yeah. But
the Industrial Revolution and automation of equipment changed the jobs of manufacturing.
But it will also create new, different jobs.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, I'm not afraid of those kinds of things. I just want, looking at being open-minded and looking for how do I use these new tools to serve my clients.
Yeah. So what's the future of Radcom look like? What do you envision for the future? What does it look like? How do you continue taking care of your employees, your team, your clients? What's next?
So we are working on developing the intellectual property around our performance profile, and kind of taking the human performance technology field and modernizing it and getting it out to the masses. You know, I have typically worked for very large companies in my career, and I want to be able to bring it down to smaller companies and impact more and more people, both the business owners and their workforce.
That's interesting. Fantastic. So how do people find out about you? How do they reach out to you if they want to connect with you, if they want to learn more about what Radcom does and how they might be able to benefit from working with you? How do they reach out to you,
Sure.
Angie?
So easy way is LinkedIn, A Dianetti on LinkedIn. My company website is www. I guess you don't have to say www anymore, do you? It shows my age. Radcomservices.com, RADCOMSERVICES, really
Right.
long,
Yeah.
.com. Is our website.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Angie. It was great running into you. I know we've met on Zoom in the past and chatted.
I know,
from time
in
to time.
person, it's so nice, especially after COVID, isn't it?
Exactly. So, all right. So it's Angie Dianetti, and it's radcomservices.com.
Yep.
And so if folks are interested in reaching out to you, they can get a hold of you. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast. And
thank you so much.
We'll get this all sent out to the audience, and I'm sure they're going to learn some things from. I love the passion that you have for not just process. It's about how do we impact people through process, and I think that's really powerful. So thank you for being on the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.